Today we're going to talk about how to factor completely. So you should have this flow chart near you. We filled out some things on it. So let me go over it real quick. Anytime you factor polynomials, you always want to look for a greatest common factor first. If the polynomial has a greatest common factor or the leading coefficient is not positive, you have to factor out your greatest common factor, or you have to factor out a -1 because you always want your leading coefficient to be positive. So we want that first term to be positive when we factor. After you check for those two things, because this note sheet is going to check for those two things, then you ask yourself if it's a binomial. Now binomials we learned were two terms. If it has two terms, you're going to check to see if it is the difference. Difference means subtraction. We've talked about this. So is it subtraction, and are they perfect squares? If it's yes, you're going to factor it. They're going to look like the same binomials, but one will be plus and one will be minus because there's no middle term. If it is not the difference of perfect squares, you're done. You cannot factor it anymore. On the other side, you're going to check if it's not a binomial, it's probably a trinomial. And then you're going to try to undo FOIL. And these four things here, we talked about how to know if you're going to have two plus signs, two minus signs, or a positive and a negative. So keep that near you as we start. So here's our notes. The first one, when I take a look at it, x squared minus 9x minus 22, there is no GCF. I'm going to write a few notes as I go. You do not have to write these down. There's no GCF. It is a trinomial. So I'm going to factor it with two sets of parentheses, two binomials. I noticed that the last term is negative. When the last term is negative, it has to be 1 plus, 1 minus. The only thing we can multiply to get x squared is x and x. So I need the factors of 22 to give me a 9. 2 times 11 I can use to give me a 9. Now, we talked about some things, how to know where to put the bigger number, because when the middle term is negative, you want to put the minus or the negative with the bigger number. So, -11, +2 gives me a -9, and there's the first one. The second one, first thing I'm looking for is GCF. On number 2, there is a GCF. 28 and 7. The GCF is 7. So I'm going to factor out a 7. I need a binomial in here. Make sure it's a binomial. 28 divided by 7 is 4. There's a minus sign. 7x squared divided by 7 is x squared. Now you don't stop there, because now you're going to think of that flow chart. I'm going to flip back real quick. After you factor, you're asking yourself if this is a binomial or a trinomial. And this one is a binomial. And if it's a binomial, you're going to ask yourself, is it subtraction? And this is subtraction. And the last thing you're going to ask yourself, is this the difference of perfect squares? 4 is a perfect square. X is a perfect square. So yes, I should still factor this. When it's the difference of perfect squares, remember one is plus and one is minus. And inside your binomials, they have to be the same values. The square root of 4 is 2, so in both spots at the beginning, I'm going to put a 2. And the square root of x squared is x. And that is factored now completely. The third one, when I notice it, I ask if there's a greatest common factor or is the leading coefficient negative. On number 3, the leading coefficient is negative. So I'm going to divide out or factor out a -1. So when I factor out a -1, all the signs inside switch. It's the opposite. And this just so happens to be a trinomial. I'm going to keep my -1 factor on the outside, set up two binomials. When the last term, remember, is negative, last term's negative, I'm going to put one positive and one negative inside my binomials. X times x is the only thing to get x squared. So I need to find the factors of 30 that would give me a 7. The more that you factor, the quicker these will come to you. You need to know your multiplication facts. 3 times 10 is 30, and 10 minus 3 gives us 7. But we want it to be -7. When the middle term is negative, you always put it with the larger of the two factors. And there is what number 3 should look like. So that's the first 3 examples. Next 3. Number 4. I asked myself, is there a greatest common factor? Some of you will say, yes, I see 10 and 15, and the GCF is 5. But you also have to check your variables. They both have y, and the greatest common factor of the y's is y to the third. So you must factor out 5y to the third. You should have a binomial. 10 divided by 5 is 2. Y cubed divided by y cubed cancels out, so there are no y's. Plus 15 divided by 5 is 3. Y to the 8th divided by y to the 3rd is y to the 5th. You don't stop there. Remember, after you factor a GCF, you ask yourself if it's a binomial or a trinomial. This is a binomial. Is it subtraction? Nope. We are done. Number 5. Greatest common factor, 149. There is no GCF. The leading coefficient is positive. It's a binomial. Is it subtraction? Yes. Are they both perfect squares? Yes. So this is going to factor as the difference of perfect squares. Remember, the difference of perfect squares is 1 plus, 1 minus. The square root of 100x squared is 10x. 10x. The square root of 49 is 7. There is number 5. Number 6. You ask yourself, is there a GCF? There is no GCF on number 6. You ask yourself if the leading term has a negative. This one does not. You ask yourself, is this a binomial or a trinomial? This one is a trinomial. So since it's a trinomial, we look at our signs. When the last term is positive, these are both positive. The only thing to get x squared is x and x. I need factors of 30 to get a 2. Off the top of my head, I can't think of them, so I'm going to write them down. 1 times 30, no. 2 times 15, no. 3 times 10, I can't do anything with those factors to get a 2. 5 times 6, and I've run into a problem. So there are no factors of 30 that I can add together to get a 2, so I'm going to say does not factor. If you can't factor a greatest common factor or anything else, you just say does not factor. And we have 3 more to try, and then if you flip this page over, that's going to be your homework. But don't start it yet. Stay with me on these last 3. You really got to know your flow chart when you're doing it. Number 7, I look for a GCF. 3, 36, and 60. I'm going to say my GCF is 3. But also, there's a negative out front. So your GCF is 3, and it's a negative as your leading coefficient. So you're going to divide out a negative 3 because we want it to be positive when we're factoring. That means I divide each of these by negative, so they're all going to become the opposite. And I also have to divide it by 3. So negative 3x squared divided by negative 3 is x squared. The next one will be positive. 36 divided by 3 is 12. 60, we're going to change this to positive. 60 divided by 3 is 20. So we did GCF. Leading term is negative. Next, we ask ourselves if this is a binomial or a trinomial. And this is a trinomial. So I'm going to set this up as 2 binomials. I look at my last term. It is positive. When the last term is positive, both of these have to be plus. The only thing to get x squared is x and x. Factors of 20. If you have to write them, you write them. If you can't think of which ones would work. 1 times 20, no. 2 times 10, we found our factors. One of these is 2, one of these is 10, and there is number 7. On number 8, we look for our greatest common factor. It's the same process every time. You've got to get your thinking pattern into that. On number 8, there is no GCF. The leading term is positive. Is it a binomial or a trinomial? This is a binomial. The next question you ask yourself, is this subtraction? When you look at this problem, it is not subtraction. It is addition. And I know those are both perfect squares. But you can't factor this anymore. There's nothing to be factored. So this one is going to be does not factor. I know those are perfect squares, but it has to be subtraction of perfect squares in order to factor it. So we have one last one here. Greatest common factor. Remember, always check numbers and variables, because on this last one, 4 goes into 100. So the greatest common factor number is 4, but they both share x. Both share x. The leading term's positive, so we don't have to worry about that. So we have 4x, and we're going to have a binomial. 4x cubed divided by 4x is x squared. Minus 100x divided by 4x is 25. But remember, don't stop there. Inside your binomial, we know it's a binomial, we have to ask ourselves, is this subtraction? Yes. Are they perfect squares? Yes. So you have to take this one more step. Remember, difference of perfect squares has 1 plus and 1 minus. The only thing to get x squared is x and x. To get 25, the square root is 5. And there is the answer to the last one. So when you start your homework, use these as a guide, but most importantly, you have to understand this flow chart, and your thinking process has to go through this flow to know what to do. And also, you have to know your multiplication facts. And if you struggle with those, you might have to write them down like I did here. It's okay. But think of all the little things that we have talked about. Good luck.